Okay, there we go. Thank you. All right, good morning, everyone. I will now call this session of the City of Issaquah Hearing Examiner to order. For the record, today is Tuesday, May 14, 2024 at 10 o'clock a.m. We have one item on our agenda today, number RZ24-00001, an application by the City of Issaquah for a site-specific rezone of the City Hall Northwest property located at 1775 12th Avenue Northwest to replace the property's existing zoning of community facilities with a proposed zoning of urban core in order to facilitate the sale of the property to private interests for development. My name is Alex Seidels. I'm an independent hearing examiner whom the city has selected to hold certain land use hearings like this one. It will be my role today to collect evidence in the form of exhibits and testimony to determine whether the proposal complies with the Issaquah Municipal Code and the criteria for site-specific rezones. To that end, I received and reviewed 6 exhibits in advance of today's hearing. These include the city staff report, the rezone application, site maps and aerial photography, environmental review materials, including a SEPA checklist and a SEPA determination of non-significance, or DNS, issued by the city on April 26, 2024. I saw no public comments in the record, so if any have come in, I hope you'll let me know as soon as we get started here. And if there are any other additional exhibits anyone would like admitted into the record, please let me know when it is your turn to testify, and we can address admitting additional exhibits at that time. Oh, excuse me. I hope I'm just getting over a cold, but in reality, it's just starting. So I'll probably just kind of go downhill throughout the course of the morning here. But speaking of witness testimony, all testimony today will be given under oath or affirmation. And that is because if my decision were to be appealed, the recording of today's hearing, along with the admitted exhibits and my written decision, would serve as the foundation for any such appeal. I may ask questions of those that are testifying. Not too many questions. I think this seems like a pretty straightforward case. If I do ask questions, my purpose is not to trip anyone up or embarrass anyone or be difficult or prolong this hearing or anything like that. My only purpose is to make sure that I have a clear understanding of the proposal. That way, after the record closes, I can produce a decision that is hopefully clear and legally defensible. Speaking of producing decisions, I am closing out my hearing examiner practice at the end of this month. As a result, I've gotten very backed up on land use decisions. Not just the city of Issaquah, but all of the jurisdictions where I'm the hearing examiner have been trying to get as many decisions as they can before I leave. So I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball on that. Normally, I'm supposed to have 10 working days to produce decisions. I've always been able to do it in the past, but this month I've started to miss some of my deadlines, and that will probably be the case with this decision as well. I will get it out to you by the end of this month, so that would be May 31st, but I don't know if that's 10 working days or not. That might be a little bit late. And just for the record, I'm well aware that I have another decision in the hopper for City of Issaquah, the Roberta Brown appeal. That one is actually next on my docket. I was starting to work on that over this weekend, and I will have the final decision for you on Roberta Brown by the end of this week. But for the rezone decision, it'll have to be till the end of the month. I apologize for that, but it's just a huge volume of cases that I've got to get through, and that just means that I'm running late. For the hearing today, the order that we typically follow for this type of hearing, and I think we'll be following today, is first we'll hear from the city staff, who will provide an overview along with any recommendations the city may have. And when I say city staff, I mean the planning department on this. I realize the city is the applicant as well, but usually when we have a municipality that's also an applicant, they kind of divide things into 2 houses. On the one side, there's the land use review, and then on the other side, there's the city department that's actually the project proponent. So I don't know that we're going to divide things up that way, but that's usually a good way to do it. In any event, I'll hear the planning recommendations. After that, I'll hear from the proponents of the rezone to see if there's any additional information they feel myself or members of the public should be aware of in advance of my decision. Once I've heard from both houses of the city, we will turn to members of the public, if any, who wish to testify. I don't see anybody on the Zoom. And Candy, is there anybody there with you?
No, there's not.
All right, well, we'll give them a chance, but if they don't turn up, we'll just close things out, I suppose. Everyone wishing to testify will have an opportunity to do so, but just like at an in-person hearing, this won't involve question and answers or cross-examination or objections or multiple speaking opportunities for members of the public. So with that, I think we can get started. As I said, I'm hoping that the city will have the planning side of things go first. So if that's the way the city wants to proceed, who will be appearing on behalf of the planning side?
I will, Kristen Leeson, Senior Planner with Community Planning and Development.
Good morning, ma'am. Let's swear you in as a witness. Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And can you please spell your full name for the audio record?
Kristen is Chrissten. Leeson, Leeson.
All right, Ms. Leeson. And I think you said you were a senior planner, was it?
Correct.
All right. Well, did my summary of the exhibits track with what you were hoping I would review in advance of the hearing?
You pretty much gave the presentation, so yes.
Okay. And have there been any late-breaking public comments? Anything come in this morning?
There have not been any comments.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead with your presentation? I will ask you to do a special focus on the public notice, because anytime there's a case where there's like no public feedback at all, there's always a worry in the back of my mind, like maybe people just didn't know about it. So if you wouldn't mind giving me a special focus on the public notice. But otherwise, I think we're ready to proceed. Okay, I can see your PowerPoint. I can't actually hear you.
I wasn't speaking yet. There we go. So
PowerPoint, I don't, do I have that in the record? Let me just check here.
you do not. I didn't know to send it to you, so I've sent it to Candy, who will send you the PDF version.
All right, no problem. We will make that Exhibit F.
Okay. Here we go. So as you noted, you are today going to make a recommendation to the city council, and the city council will make the final decision on this. But because the requested zone of urban core is inconsistent with the existing land use designation, it will also require, if recommended for approval, a comprehensive plan amendment. So this is, if it's recommended for approval, it is then conditioned upon approval of the comprehensive plan amendment by city council. Because I did not do a slide, I apologize, on public participation. I will let you know that it was posted. The application was submitted late last year. It was posted on the site on January 10th. We then sent out letters to all property owners within 500 feet on April 26th. It was also posted in the paper and on the Seattle Times and on the website on April 26th. And then there was an appeal period that runs from April 26th through May 24th for SEPA, which was also noticed on April 26th.
Okay, so with the posting on site on January 10, that was probably just the rezone. The April 26th posting, letters, and Seattle Times was for both the rezone and the DNS. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, got it. All right. On-site, DNS, and application posting, April 26th as well. Okay, perfect. I think that satisfies all of my questions. Seems like folks had an opportunity to know about this, and if they wanted us to hear from them, they should be here.
Okay. So moving on, the existing conditions, as you mentioned, it's located at 1775 12th Avenue Northwest. It is located in the central Issaquah sub-area, and specifically it's located in our regional growth center. The current zoning is community facilities, and the current land use is community facilities, and it is about 1.28 acres. The requested zoning is urban core, which would then require the land use be mixed use. Development standards for the two are very similar. So IMC 18404-130A states that development standards in community facility zones are determined by the most restrictive contiguous zoning, except for public schools and public buildings. And as you can see, everything that is contiguous to it is zoned urban core. However, if a public building were to go here, the standards are also very similar. The build to lines are both 0 to 10 feet. The minimum and maximum FARs, floor area ratios, are the same. The side and rear setbacks are slightly different, with 7 feet in community facilities and 0. feet in urban core. Impervious surface is 90% and community facilities and 95% in urban core. And then the maximum height in community facilities is 85 feet, while the maximum height in which public benefit is required is 125 feet.
Okay. And do you have a sense, Ms. Leeson, what the future purchaser might be planning to put in there? Do you have somebody that you're talking to?
I actually spoke with someone yesterday who was interested in putting commercial or non-residential on the site.
Okay. Would the city's recommendation change depending on whether the proposed future use was residential or non-residential, or is that not a factor here?
It's not a factor.
Okay. All right.
Okay, as for the uses, the current one, community facilities, is sort of limited. It allows for accessory uses, meeting halls, caretaker residence, not residential, but just a caretaker residence, daycares, mailing services, parking, temporary accessory uses like recycling events, some agricultural and resource, botanical gardens, tree farms, horse stables, some professional offices allowed there, quasi-public uses, government vehicle storage, community centers, schools and nonprofits, and then all recreation facilities are allowed there under community facilities. I couldn't list them all under urban core. I just listed all the topics because there are so many uses. I think this is our most inclusive zone that we have in the city. Most automotive uses, multifamily residential, no single family, food and beverage, hotel lodging, quasi-public, office, professional, medical, some industrial and intensive commercial, most recreation, no golf courses, and retail and service. There is one environmental constraint on the site. It is a wetland that is on the south and southwest side of the property. It's approximately 2.27 acres, but because the site is 1.28 acres, that still leaves about an acre for development.
Yes, and I think, here where there's not a specific proposal on my desk, I don't need to see a wetland typing and delineation. I mean, even if that were, a very significant wetland with a very large buffer, it strikes me the rezone could still go forward because there would still be room, huh?
Okay.
Well, you tell me, I don't know.
Actually, here it can still go forward. If there was something that was much larger, which has happened in the past, we would probably say no.
Right.
It depends on the site, but in this case, it's not going to affect the rezone or our recommendation.
Right, okay.
So as you mentioned, there are criteria. The code says that the city may approve or approve with modifications an application for site-specific rezone if a property meets all of the following criteria. I won't go through all of them, but it does not have an impact. Well, maybe I will. It doesn't have an negative impact on the health, welfare, or safety of the community. It is warranted because of significantly changed conditions. The surrounding area is now located within the regional growth center where we are trying to get housing and jobs, and community facilities does not allow for very much of that. Urban core does. The proposed zone is appropriate for regional development.
So I guess, I'm sorry, I want to focus on criteria number 2 there a little bit more. So the significantly changed conditions would be at some point, this area and its surroundings were designated RGC, and that means that they're targeted for growths in housing and jobs. Is that it for change conditions? That designation is kind of why we're doing this?
Well, it's also because the city wants to sell the property and they can't. Community facilities is zoned for publicly owned property. That's sort of its identification. And the building's vacant. It's no longer being used.
When did the city vacate the building?
During, I'm going to say completely vacated in 2023 or 2024. But no one has actually located in the building since about 2021.
Okay.
Right.
Employees still operate there, but
Right.
it's still being used for storage.
Is it still? Oh, I take it back. It's still being used for storage, but employees have not been there for a year or two.
Okay. All right. So I think we were on number 3, appropriate for reasonable development.
Yes, I noted before, it is appropriate for regional development under the existing codes and regulations. It is suitable for it would not require a variance request to develop a property. It would not have an adverse impact on users or in the immediate area. It does comply with all other city rules and regulations. It does have adequate public facilities and services. I believe I mentioned in the staff report that the stormwater master plan, the sewer master plan, they've all been updated to account for future growth in the regional growth center and central Issaquah. So the services would be there, and it should not have any probable adverse impacts could be mitigated.
Okay.
So staff believes that it meets all of the required criteria, and therefore we recommend approval of the requested rezone from community facilities to urban core.
All right. I think in the staff report, the recommendation was for approval with no conditions of with no conditions from me. But this is something you touched on a little bit. As I read Issaquah Municipal Code 18.216.030D, it says, I'll just read it out. If the quasi-judicial rezone request requires a comprehensive plan land use map amendment, a decision to approve the rezone shall be conditioned upon approval of the comprehensive plan amendment by the city council. So I think that's the universe that we're in. So I think I actually am required to write in a condition, and maybe this is the only one, that says, this rezone is conditioned upon approval of the comp plan amendment by the city council. Does that make sense to you, Ms. Leeson?
It does, and I mentioned that in the beginning, and
Yeah.
So
Well,
yes.
I just think I've got to write it in the decision. I mean, in some ways you could say, well, it's in the code anyways, so maybe it doesn't need to be in the decision. But I think just to cover all the bases, I will put it in there. My thought on that is, how long should we give the city council to make a decision on a comp plan amendment? 2 years or 3 years, or how much interest is there on the city council side?
This year, the city has to approve our comprehensive plan by December of 2024. It's part of the state's required periodic comprehensive plan amendments.
And is this comp plan amendment already on the docket for that?
It is.
Okay,
Yes.
I guess it would have to be, yeah, because it's kind of too late to add stuff to the docket now at this point, huh?
Yes.
Okay, great. So it's on the docket. I don't see any reason why the city council wouldn't do it. So I'll still write in a deadline for it to happen, just in case it drops out of the docket for whatever reason. But I won't worry too much about that issue. Okay, very good. Thanks, Ms. Leeson. This is extremely helpful. I don't have any other questions for you. I guess we can now turn it over to the applicant side of the house from the city, if there's any project proponent from the city that wants to speak on this.
Jeannie Justice is here. I'm see if she wants to speak.
Hello, Ms. Justice. You don't have to speak. I think Ms. Leeson covered it pretty well, but if you think there's other things that I should know from the applicant side of the house, you certainly have the opportunity to put that forward if you like.
Don't think I have anything to add other than we did also go through a surplus process for this piece of property.
I think I will swear you in as a witness, and if you're going to be telling new things, that's new information.
Okay.
So we've just got to swear you in because it's all on the record. So will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the record? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And the spelling of your name I see on my screen here is Jeanne, last name Justice. Is that correct?
Yes.
And would you mind telling me your role with the city, please, ma'am?
I'm the administrative services manager.
Okay. So you were telling me that you had gone through a surplusing process for this property?
For this property. So there was also a public hearing and public notice for that process that mentioned the rezone that was ongoing.
And did you receive any public comment through that process?
No.
Okay. And when was that process completed?
The public hearing was held on April 15th.
Oh, okay.
And public notice was given March 29th.
Okay. Very good. Ms. Justice, is there anything else you think I should know from the applicant side of the city?
No.
All right, very good. Thank you. That's helpful background. I appreciate it. All right, let's turn it over to members of the public. Has anybody showed up on the Zoom or in the room wishing to speak on the rezone? Head shaking from Candy. So, all right, I will, I think in that case, I know everything I need to know. So we will declare the record closed, and I will get this out to you, as I mentioned a moment ago, by the end of the month. And if that's not 10 working days, I apologize for that, but I'm way backed up on stuff. And my top priority right now is the Roberta Brown one for you guys. So. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for the helpful testimony. A well-done staff report. I will admit that PowerPoint as Exhibit F once I have it from Candy. No hurry on that, Candy, if you have other things to do today. And also, if you can send me the audio recording from today's hearing. I always refer back to the audio recording when I'm writing up these decisions. But again, if you've got other stuff to do today, it doesn't have to happen today. I've got plenty to do before I turn to the decision on this case. All right. Thanks again, everybody, and have a good rest of your day. We are adjourned.
Thank you.